today I want to talk about Casper, but I'll also talk about Kaspa as well, which are two very unique crypto projects and cryptos that use some of the same kind of technology. And to introduce this, let's let an expert explain it a little bit more.
And so I'll ask you this question. What does the word Casper mean to you in the blockchain?
Well, if he's the friendly ghost, I mean, he's there, he's helping you out, but you can't see him. I don't
That's
know.
good. That's good. But I'll give you the background on it. It's actually a really fascinating background story. Okay? So back in 2014, a couple of Israeli researchers published a paper pointing out a giant flaw in proof of stake blockchains. And as early as 2014, Vitalik, who is a super genius, already recognized that Ethereum was not going to be able to scale. So this first massive scaling problem is something called Ghost, the greediest, heaviest observed subtree, stands for Ghost. And Vitalik's researchers came up with a friendly solution to the Ghost problem, and they called it Casper. So under Vitalik's guidance, there was a proposal made to scale Ethereum using this thing called Casper.
Okay, so that got me to think a little bit more because I have looked a little bit into Kaspa, but I am much more familiar with Casper, and I do know that their consensus protocol is pretty different compared to that of a lot of other cryptos out there, and is a lot of why I am so heavily invested in Casper, and why I am so interested in it in terms of the actual adoption. But let's check a little bit more into the connection.
So consensus runs on these two big algorithms. One of them is this LMD Ghost fork choice rule, which is an adaptation of this Ghost algorithm that was invented by Jonathan Sampolinski in 2013 to a proof-of-stake context. And the main goal of LMD Ghost is to be able to handle network latency, be able to handle fast messages, and be able to kind of help rapidly confirm blocks.
So essentially, Kaspa can be viewed as the proof of work version of Casper. The Ghost and Ghost DAG, which Vitalik has actually talked about, are directly referring to Kaspa. And this whole concept has actually been talked about a lot by a lot of very large names in the crypto industry. You've got Charles Hoskinson from Cardano talking about it. He's talking about it again. You've got it with Polkadot as well. Nick Szabo, I am familiar with the name, but I don't recall it off the top of my head. You have Monero as well, which I really don't know a lot about, except that it is a quote unquote privacy coin. Conflux, Filecoin, Casper. All right.
The proofs about safety work, we have to follow the GHOST rule, that stands for greedy heaviest observed subtree. And that essentially means that you start at the genesis block on the left side here. And whenever there's a fork, you have the choice between multiple children. You have to pick the fork on which most of the validators are currently building.
And that is kind of what the Casper Highway protocol does, which I'll explain in a bit. One other point that I want to mention before I forget, we did have an executive order come out today, I believe, and it's on AI. And I'm really interested in this because Casper is actually involved with IBM Watson to make AI more governable by designing it with and or on top of a blockchain in order to track inputs and outputs essentially. So I wanted to mention that before I forgot because I would. So Kaspa runs on this DAG Knight protocol. And if you read this, the main advantages of it are that the DAG is primarily constrained by hardware, right? And then you have this SPECTRE thing as well. That doesn't provide an ordering, and blocks can change places long after they were confirmed, which doesn't really make sense. Which is fine for a DLT, but it doesn't work well for smart contracts, which Casper designed their own smart contract virtual machine as well, which I will explain more. And that is why Caspa would implement GHOSTDAG and not SPECTRE. But now Caspa has DAG Knight, which achieves each of them and is the first consensus protocol to actually have it all. So in short, it is a proof of work consensus algorithm which has no speed constraints beyond hardware, suitable for smart contracts, and quote unquote I'm not going to complete that word because I can't right now, but it's there, as network latency is improved. It is the true epitome of what proof of work can be and should make proof of work proponents very excited. It's probably the only proof of work project out there that I would actually have interest in. So now let's talk a little bit more about what makes Casper unique, right? It comes from Ethereum research, which we introduced at the start of this. The GHOSTDAG was inspired by that one guy that we talked about, who is connected to Casper and Kaspa. Its highway protocol was built with cardinal consensus, I think, which is related to Aleph 0. I can never remember how to pronounce that. And it is involved in TC 307 by way of IBM. So CBC Casper is where the highway consensus actually comes from. And it just means that the network won't make inconsistent choices and will eventually reach a final decision or finality. The highway protocol is explained a bit more on the Casper Lab site if you're interested in that. And it essentially enables the network to reach higher thresholds of finality, and it achieves flexibility in a way not possible in more typical consensus protocols. So that created some controversy apparently, but Casper came out on top, proving that highway protocol is indeed an augmentation of the original and blah blah blah. But Casper didn't stop there. They also looked to the ghost rule founded by the Kaspa founder, who's now integrated it into his own protocol as well. So then we talk about it being POS instead of POW. Uh, Cardinal cryptography helped in the actual highway uh, consensus to attract more of an enterprise investment and enterprise adoption part of what Casper actually can offer. So it talks a lot about Ghost, which we introduced. So the consultant, man, I read through this, but not each and every word. So as an enterprise grade DLT, you will look to hosting enterprise purpose applications on your network once the consensus is built out, which is exactly what Casper did by initially collaborating with IBM and Hyperledger, which I will touch on more, and connect it to XRP, XLM, HBAR, and a lot of other things. The Hyperledger actually works on ISO TC 307 and SATP, which is where Quant comes from as well. Gilbert Verdian actually contributed to or wrote, I can't remember exactly which one, ISO TC 307. So we have more Hyperledger functionality designed into Casper itself. We talk about IPWE and why they chose to partner with Casper and with IBM as well. Because of all of this, it explains the different parts of Hyperledger there. So yeah, that is a lot of tech, but it's so interesting that Casper and Kaspa are related, not just because they sound kind of the same, but in the actual technology themselves. Probably my first choice in technology for POS and POW respectively, for what that is worth. So from Kevin Cage, Casper has built its own virtual machine. A lot of projects out there tie into Ethereum's virtual machine just to make things easier, but it is expensive, and the actual contracts themselves can be cumbersome over time. However, the Ethereum for virtual machine has cons, especially for enterprise adoption, which is what Casper is all about, and what Ethereum has had, but pretty much just because they were the largest and most adopted virtual machine at that time, and I would think that they are now. But Casper is recreating that specifically for enterprise adoption, which is explained here. 95% of Casper's customers are building hybrid deployments connected to the actual public Casper network. That means that all computation requires the actual Casper token itself, which is what the CEO said, where they have tried to bring computation onto the Casper network itself, which in his own words means that that is where all of the value for Casper itself actually comes from. It explains a little bit more about why the actual Casper virtual machine is favorable, and it goes to the actual WebAssembly programming language, which a lot of companies out there use right now. I think in another post I had, it talks about companies like Amazon, for example. So here's a clip about the value of Casper smart contracts.
This is Leo Chen. I'm in Singapore at the Token 2049 event, and I'm currently working for Nucleus Finance. We're helping financial institutions tokenize their assets on a smart financial contract utilizing the Actus protocol. Smart financial contracts are going to absolutely change the industry, and we couldn't do it without Casper.
And just to remind everyone, the actual Actus protocol is where ISO 222 actually comes from. In short, ISO 222 is run by the Actus protocol, and Casper is partnered up with people who are actually a part of the committee for the Actus protocol. So in a lot of ways, they are above ISO 222 quote unquote compliant projects like XRP, XLM, HBAR, and a lot of others I talk about. Casper has also implemented zero knowledge proofs, which allow a prover to show the validity of a transaction without revealing any additional information about the transaction itself. This makes Casper more secure, private, and I can't read that word right now, but it is right there on the screen. So now on that executive order on AI, the executive order is basically requiring AI to be implemented and designed and used in a way to allegedly protect Americans' privacy, which I can have some opinions on how politicians overall do not want to protect our privacy, but I won't get into that. Now, I was thinking about how that might tie into Casper with their work in AI, and I want to go back to my last video on Casper, which I'll put in the description. It is explaining how Casper is working with IBM and Watson X, which is IBM's AI, to use the Casper blockchain to make AI more controllable and more governable. And that is because in short, inputs and outputs of AI can be traced on the actual Casper chain. So you could go back and see what inputs created what outputs. And Kevin Cage reminded everyone that that this patent here shows a AI integrate or a machine learning of data patent for Watson X and blockchain. Well, who is IBM publicly partnered up with? Casper. And there is a presentation on that on November 2nd.